Hi guys, welcome back to another Macroman video. This is part 4 of the VBA beginner series and we're going to be looking at loops and variables. Just a quick recap on the last video. We were looking at sheets and values and we had a quick learning task. So number 1, to rename the test sheet in the properties to SHT test. So let's quickly check that. So SHT test, that's how you do that. Create a macro to populate the values in range A1 to A6 on the range and cell sheet to range C1 to C6 in the test sheet using the range method. So this is the values A1 to A6 on the range and cells sheet, and this is the test sheet. Just clear that out. This is the macro that I came up with. So sheet test.range C1 to C6 is equal to range cells range and cells range A1 to A6 like that. So if we just F8 and execute those, as you can see the values come through. That's using the SHT method, and this is the sheets longhand method, just to get you used to it, and we're populating the values using the cells. So there we go. You can pause the video and examine that at your leisure, but let's move on to the main part of this video, which is looking at loops and variables. So let's just hide these because we don't need these anymore. Range and cells. Okay, this is Bob's hardware store. We've got 5 products here: saw, hammer, chisel, screwdriver and drill of varying price and stock levels. Let me just take that off. So let's create a new module for this. If we go to the VBA editor and do insert module, we've now got module 2. I'm going to remove this option explicit for now. Don't worry about that. I'm going to explain that in detail in a video all of it itself, because I don't want to bog you down with that at the moment. We're just going to get some variables created for now. So if we create a sub, so let's call this variables and loops. Okay, I've named the variable sheet SHT var, and from now going forward always use the SHT method when referring to cells or ranges. Don't bother with the longhand as in sheets and then brackets and then the name of the sheet, because as I said before in previous videos, if somebody comes along and changes the name of the sheet and you've hard coded it like that, then the macro will no longer run. So always use the code name of the sheet when you're referring to your sheet references, cell references rather. Okay, so a variable is simply a container where it can store value, and it obviously changes, hence the name variable. So to give you an example, let's say we wanted to work out the total value of the store of saws that we've got. So we would need to do price times stock level. Now you could just use a formula for this, but we're going to do this in VBA just to demonstrate how this works. And let's say the price is one variable and stock L, let's say that's another variable. So let's say the price is equal to SHT var dot range D5, and stock level is equal to SHT var dot range sorry, price should be C, not D5. Let's just change that. D5, there we go. So if I F8 to enter this in debugging mode and then execute these 2 lines, if I hover over price now, it says 9.99. As you can see, it's obviously read that. Even though it's got a pound sign in front of the £9.99, that's just a formatting thing. If you actually look in the formula bar here, the actual value of the cell is just 9.99. The pound sign is just a formatting thing. If you hover over stock L, that's 44. So we've basically read in those 2 values into these variables. Now if I say copied that and put that down here, and now we look at C6 and D6. So if we go into that again, 9.99 and 44. Now if we run over these again, now that we're pointing at different cells, it will change. So it's got changed from 9.99 to 7.99, i.e. the next line down, C6, and the stock level should have changed to 52. So if we hover over that, then yes, we can see it's now changed to 52. So that's how you do variables. Now let's say we wanted to add the total values or populate the total values for each of these products in these sheets. Now obviously you could just write this out 5 times, or sorry, I'm jumping ahead of myself. So if we did that sheet var dot range, say E5, we could say that's equal to price star or times stock level. So if I execute that line, as you can see, the value has populated in there. Sorry, I need to re-execute this because we changed the variables. I didn't think that looked right. So if we re-execute these, there you go, that's better. So it's 43956, and let's change the formatting so that it matches the currency. There we go. Okay, so as I said, we could effectively write this out 5 times, as in C5, D5 and E5, and then it could go to row 6, 7, 8 and 9. But when you've got a spreadsheet with hundreds or thousands of lines, you don't really want to be doing that hundreds or thousands of times. So that's why we use a loop in order to do that quickly. So what we do, one of the most common loops, and one I use most of the time, is for next loop. So you write it out in this format. So you say for, and then you define the parameters of the loop. So you say for x equals, say 5 to 9, and we do next x like this. I'll explain what this all means in a second. Let me just write it out. X3 X4 X. Okay, so what we've said, I've decided to use x as the variable for the row. The reason for that is, and we're also using the cells method because it's easier to enter a variable into cells like this inside the bracket, so you've got row and then column, rather than using range. So what we're basically saying here, if we step into this, is we're saying the this loop will run between row 5 to 9, and when we go over the price, we are saying that the price is equal to sheet var dot cells row 5 or x, and then column 3, and as you can see, stock level is equivalent to sheet var dot cells row 5 or x in this case, column 4, so it's column D. So price is 9.99 and stock is 44, and then we're saying sheet var dot cells row 5 column 5 or E5 is equal to these two variables, price times stock. If I execute that line, well, it was already in there anyway, so let's just go through this one line at a time, and then you'll see in column E the values will be calculated and populate accordingly. And there we go. So rather than writing that out 5 times, it's much easier to use a loop. And let's just do what we always do. Let's clear out the contents before every time we run the macro, so it effectively refreshes. When I'm doing a clear out of a range of cells, I just find it easier to use range, because if it's like a fixed range or something you know that's not going to change, I mean, you can use the cells method if you want, but I just find it easier to write out the range method. You use whichever method you want for this. And good practice with VBA coding is you should always, when you start the macro like this, as you can see, I've indented when I've started the loop like this. So you start the loop, you define it, and then you go down to the next line, indent by pressing tab once, and then everything inside the loop, between 4x equals 5 to 9 and next x, this is all on the same left alignment. Once you finish the loop, then you go to the once you finish the logic inside the loop, then you go to next x. So let's jump through this again. So first of all, we're clearing out the contents of E5 to E whatever number, and then we're saying, okay, from row 5 to 9, or x equals 5 to, I mean, x could be anything. I mean, it could be called cheese. I mean, it doesn't really matter as long as you change the variable name wherever it's required. It doesn't matter what the variable is called. Let me just do this so that you know that this definitely works. I think, you know, from a mathematical background, I just use x a lot. So as you can see, cheese is equal to 5. So it really doesn't matter what the variable is called, as long as it's consistent throughout. What you can't have is, say for example, cheese here, here, and here, and then you've got x here. So it won't recognize it. It'll be like, well, what is x? And that's kind of where option explicit comes into its own, and we'll explain what that is in detail in the next video. Okay, so if we change that back to x, because it's much easier than writing cheese every time. So again, let's just click play. There we go. So if we go to the developer and insert, create a button, and assign the variables loops macro to it, there we go. So if we just clear that to make sure, there we go. That all works brilliantly. Okay, so that's an introduction to loops and variables. You know, this might take you some time to get your head around, so pause and rewind this video at your leisure and try to take in it as much as you can. I've set you a small task. So I've created this sheet called Bob's Hardware Store. Got 12 products here, and the task is first change the code name of the sheet called Bob's Hardware Store using the SHT sheet name format. 2. Using the loops and variables, create a macro to loop through all of the products in Bob's Hardware Store and populate the total value for each product in the total column value. And finally, create a button to assign the macro to it, and be sure to add some code at the beginning to clear out the contents of the previous results in the total value column, so it effectively refreshes each time. I know it's a lot to take in on this video. Just do the best you can, and I'll see you for the next video.